Hello and welcome. So in here what we'll be dealing with the sign in. We have already implemented a sign up way, but how can a user sign in? First, what we'll need is we'll get the email and the password that was used for the sign in, and then check in the database for that user and compare the password. If it compares correctly and the user was found, then we'll create a session. This session will be created with a session ID. So this session ID is a node UUID, which we'll be using here. This node model called node UUID, it will just create a unique ID for us, for the user, and then this unique ID can be used later to authenticate this user. First of all, what we'll need is we'll need the session model. So we'll need a place where to store this node UUID. So we'll need a new model here called the session model. So I will just call it session.ts, and then after this is created, I will wanna just simply define the model there very quickly, and I'm gonna import some things that I need from Mongoose. So I'm using ES6 imports here. So I want to import the schema, I want to import the model, also I want to get the document interface. So in here that has been set up. So I want to export an interface called the iSession. This will just hold a basic interface to tell what we'll need here. Session ID, which is of type string, and then next is that it will be of type, it will reference a user. So this user will be of type iUser document. If you can see here, WebStorm automatically imports this because it's been exported from the user's model there. But if you're using some other text editor like Sublime or Visual Studio Code, it won't do that automatically, so you have to write that yourself. And also I want to export a simple interface here, which we'll call the iSession document, almost identical to how we did for our user, which will extend so that I will get IntelliSense on the document when it's been instantiated. So in here we'll do like that, and then next is that I will have my session schema to be defined, which will be a new instance of a schema that will be instantiated with this object here. So I have a session ID which will be of type string, and I want it to be unique, so the unique will be true. And then next up is that the user have a very special reference here. So the user, all we'll be doing is we'll be storing the ID of the user here, but it will be of reference to the user's database. So in here I'll have a simple ref here which will be referencing the user, and I will set it to be required. So anytime we'll create it, it will be, when we are creating a session, it will require us to have, sorry, it's supposed to be here like this. So if we're creating a session, we'll require it to reference a particular user. Next up is that I will need to export the session model. So I want to export my session model is equals to model, and then have it as iSession document. So it's just a generics, and give the name of our model here, and then pass it the session schema. So right now we have set up a session model. This SID is gonna be created with a UUID, and then each session has a unique ID referencing a user. Now in our sign in here, how we're gonna implement this? First off is that we'll get find the current user that is being needed to be authenticated. So for this particular user, we'll get like make a user.find from the find one, and then we'll give it an object to find. So we want it to find by email, which will take a request.body.email. So it's gonna find a user with such an email, and then our callback is gonna take an error as the first argument and the found user as the second argument. So we can see we're passing in callbacks here. And then next stuff is that I can say if there is error or not found user, maybe if there is error or the user was not found, then I want it to send an error message. So I will return res.send like a 4 or 1. First I want to set the status to 4 or 1, and then just send in the error. Or let's say just get a message there, say maybe error finding, error signing in. So but if we've successfully found the user, then I want it to just basically compare the password. So if found user dot password is not equal to, first we'll check if it is not equal to the request.body.password that was provided. Then we'll just send the user a message like what will return and res.send. So we'll send the user a message that will say like email or password incorrect, because we don't want to tell the user exactly what was wrong. And then but I want to give it a status here, so we'll set a status which is just say 4 or 3, maybe failed authentication. Then next up is that, so if everything goes fine, then it means we can create a session. So we're gonna import now our session model that we created here in our auth routes here, and then we'll create a session for that user. So I'm gonna just do a session dot create, but if we notice we have not yet imported this in our routes here. If you're using this, it will help you import it by itself, but if you're not using this IDE, then it will not like import it, so you have to import it yourself. So I'm importing it like this with ES6 models. You can just use a common JS too. So I want to say session.create, so I want to create a simple user and then pass it the found user dot ID. So we're only referencing it by an ID, as it's a reference, not a sub document. So next up is we want our session ID. So our session ID, we're going to use the node UUID model. So I want my SID, but I have to import my session model from here, my node UUID model. So I'm going to import, or let me just say import UUID is equals to, I'll just use a require here. It doesn't matter which you use, so I'm gonna use sorry, it's not a dash there. It's equals to node UUID, and I imported that there, so I'm gonna say like UUID dot Let me just use version 1. So it will just return a new UUID for this particular user, and then we'll create it, but we'll pass it a callback function. This callback function will take an error message as first, and then the second will be the created session. Check also if there is any error or not, or if not, created session. So we can just send back some status here and return res.status, and let's say 401, and also then send back the error, or we'll just send a message call, say error creating session. Next up is that if it's successful, then we want to send an object with a token, a JSON with a token. So I'm gonna just return here again. So I'll return if res.send, that's if everything goes well. I want to return an object with a token and then set the token to the created session. So I will do like created session dot sid. So when this is created, it returns the created object. So this created object with the session ID, if everything was created, then will return to the user, and then for subsequent requests, this user can make use of this session ID. Right now we created that, so we can easily test it by creating a new user and then testing our app here. So first of all, I will come back to Postman here, but start my app first. So in here I can say node bin www.js. So I will start my server and it's connected there, and now I can then make a sign up first. I want to sign up, so I can come to my local host. I cleaned up my database before, so I'm just gonna do a sign up with the user here. So my first user here, I will like set it to like make it application.json, and then set my name to alpha one, then email to alpha@mail.com. Next up is that I want to set my password to my super secure password called pass. So now next is we'll just send it and test it if it works. Sorry, it's API/auth/signup. So send it, and our user was created. So now we can go ahead and then test our sign in. So in here is API/auth/sign in. So we'll send in a body here, which will just basically be what we did here. To speed up time, I'll copy that, paste it, but then take out the name, as we don't need the name, we only need the email and password. We'll set this one to application.json, and then we will just send it and see what happens. So we can see that this one was successfully created, a session was successfully created, and now we have our session here for this correct.